When it comes to single-player games, Sony has long had the edge over its console rivals. It's true that many big PlayStation exclusives have been released for PC in recent years, but Sony still reigns supreme in the home console space. The best single-player PS5 games are among the best in the industry and offer players scenarios and stories that are capable of keeping them engaged from start to finish, which is why I'm going to show you these games in today's video. After the event of the first game, Aloy is left with a lot more questions than answers. In Horizon Forbidden West, you take the young woman on another adventure. She is to head west, to the lands of Nevada and California, with plenty of mechanical beasts in her way. You'll come across new characters, friendly and hostile alike, in this open-world journey. There are mountainous regions, lush forests, and long-forgotten cities that make up the landscape of Horizon Forbidden West. Once you finally make it to the Forbidden West, get ready to unlock a secret that changes Aloy's future. Next on this list of the top 7 best single-player games for PS5, I want to talk about God of War: Ragnarök. This is the sequel to the very well-received God of War reboot that came out in 2018. This next entry in the series is more or less everything players loved about the first game, but expanded upon and enhanced. It continues the story of Kratos and his son Atreus, and oh boy does it not disappoint. For those who have not played any God of War game, essentially this is a third-person action game that takes place in a fantasy world inspired by Greek mythology. The combat is satisfying and crunchy, with an emphasis on melee gameplay. It's a really fun game and one of the best exclusives available on the PS5 system. If you love Greek mythology or are just looking for a great PlayStation exclusive, I can't recommend this game enough. Elden Ring is a fantastic action RPG by the minds at From Software, the creators of Dark Souls. You create a character known as the Tarnished and travel to the lands between where you must find the Elden Ring and become an Elden Lord. You'll need to form your own playstyle with the right weapons, armor, and spells to do so. Like in From Software game, the map is littered with enemies. There are massive bosses that will truly test how far you've come with your strength and skill. If you want a single-player game that will absorb a lot of your time, Elden Ring is it. Just prepare for the frustration that is sure to follow. The Final Fantasy series has never been one to sit still, and with Final Fantasy XVI, it's moved away from its turn-based traditions entirely. The first true action RPG in the mainline games, it's quite the departure from the norm, but it's an excellent entry nonetheless. Featuring a gripping story delivered by brilliant performances, incredibly fun combat, and some of the most spectacular scenes imaginable, this is a fantastic game that pulls out all the stops. Like Hitman, the Resident Evil franchise is another one that has built a huge reputation in the gaming industry since the first title was released in 1996. At the time, the game was created by Shinji Mikami and Takuro Fujiwara, and it pretty much carved out the survival horror genre while bringing zombies back into the mainstream gaming world. 25 years on, Resident Evil Village was released, and that carved-out niche remains the key selling point that makes the game a unique feature in this guide to the best single-player games on PS5. The game was developed and published by Capcom, and it serves as the sequel to Resident Evil 7, Biohazard. Interestingly, Resident Evil 7 marked the switch from third-person in previous iterations to a first-person perspective, and Resident Evil Village retained that format. The result of that switch is a more immersive experience with a complete focus on the horror in front of and around you. The story mode follows Ethan Winter's adventure as he searches for his kidnapped daughter in a village filled with zombie-like mutant creatures. It is a double misfortune for Ethan as these events follow the murder of his wife, Mia, just when he thought things were going back to normal once again. From the makers of the infamous series, it's Ghosts of Tsushima. The game takes place in Japan during the Mongolian invasion in the year 1274. You play as a samurai on a mission to defend his home island from the hostile invasion force. The game was first released several years ago, but has since received a next-gen upgrade available on the PlayStation 5. This upgrade comes with the DLC included, so it's the definitive way to play the game. As for the gameplay itself, it's an open-world stealth/action game. You'll travel around completing open-world activities, completing missions, and in general, making the Mongolians wish they had never come to your island. This game also manages to be pretty historically accurate, so if you are a history nerd you might be interested in this game. From Software has established itself as one of the premier video game developers in the world. The Japanese studio was best known for its Armored Core series before the release of Dark Souls, but has now been credited with inventing a brand new genre in the form of Souls-likes. These action RPGs are known for their dark fantasy settings and fiendishly brutal combat that will see players die hundreds of times. While Dark Souls popularized this formula, the groundwork for the developer's most popular games was first demonstrated in Demon's Souls. It made sense for this original game to be remade for modern hardware, allowing fans to experience a game they might have missed when it launched on the PS3. Helmed by Bluepoint Games, Demon's Souls was a 2020 launch title for the PS5 that has an extensive graphical overhaul and has seen many of its gameplay mechanics tweaked and improved. This included new customization options, a photo mode, and balance changes to how the encumbrance system works. These enhancements make what is already a great game even better, and any fans of From Software's more recent library would do well to check out Demon's Souls. Yakuza, like a dragon, barely feels next-gen as it's very much rooted by Ryuga Gotoku Studios' dated engine and game design principles, but it's bursting with personality in one of the most varied releases on this list. At its core, it's a traditional, turn-based, a first for the franchise, role-playing game built around an engaging and relatable party of core characters, but it's so much more. This small but densely populated open-world harbors go-karts, an entire business management minigame, and more wacky side quests than you can shake a massage wand at. This is one of the most unique and time-consuming titles on PS5. Star Wars Jedi: Survivor puts you in control of Cal Kestis once again. There are several planets to explore, collectibles and side missions to complete, and multiple lightsaber stances to help you take down raiders and the Empire. Cal is clearly a more experienced Jedi at this point in his life. With cameos from multiple Star Wars icons, you'll get to see how Cal stands up to the rest of the Star Wars universe. Customize his appearance and weapons to your liking and take the fight to the Galactic Empire. Days Gone was published by Sony Interactive Entertainment in 2019. The game has since received updates that make it run at 60 frames per second with a dynamic 4K resolution, so it looks and runs better on the PS5. If your thirst for single-player action can only be quenched by shooting zombies in the head, then Days Gone is for you. Be warned, however, that these zombies are not your typical crawling and creeping slow movers. These guys are fast, and they move in hordes. The post-apocalyptic zombie beat often feels overplayed nowadays, but Days Gone manages to refine all the elements that made people fall in love with the subgenre in the first place. You play as a drifter, Deacon St. John, as he sets off into the hostile open-world, zombie-filled environment of post-apocalyptic Oregon to find his missing wife, Sarah, after finding out that she might not be dead as he had presumed initially. Your major mode of transport is a motorcycle that you must keep in good condition to avoid getting stranded, but you also have the luxury of firearms, improvised weapons, and melee weapons to keep the undead at bay for as long as you can. Taking place hundreds of years before the events of Harry Potter, Hogwarts Legacy finally lets fans live out their dream of attending the eponymous school. While there's an intriguing story to follow that takes you far beyond the castle itself, this RPG's strengths are all in the smaller things. The school is a joy to explore, as are the surrounding grounds, because of an obsessive attention to detail that really does imbue the open world with magic. Layer on top solid spell-based combat, flying on your broom, and even rearing magical creatures, and the result is a real crowd pleaser, and definitely the best game in the franchise. The Last of Us, Part 1 is such a work of art. From the beautiful and lush environments to the griping story, there's a lot to love about this game. For those unfamiliar with this title, The Last of Us takes place in a post-apocalyptic United States after a deadly virus has swept through the world, turning almost everyone into fungoid-infected zombies. The first entry in the series was released back in 2013 for the PlayStation 3, but has since been remade for the PlayStation 5. This is the definitive way to play the game. With overhauled graphics and numerous quality-of-life features, if you've never experienced the amazing story of The Last of Us before, then this is the best time to dive into it. If one thing is guaranteed to coincide with the release of a new console, it's remasters of already successful games. Developers and publishers like to take advantage of the fact that an updated system makes it possible to re-release a game to a whole new audience. Remasters also appeal to players who have already tried out the game and might be tempted to go back to it thanks to upgrades and enhancements. Marvel's Spider-Man Remastered is essentially the same action-adventure game that swung onto the PS4 to high praise in 2018. Following Peter Parker's attempts to stop Mr. Negative from releasing a deadly virus, this new game version includes all previously released downloadable content, graphical improvements, extra costumes for Spider-Man, and support for the PS5's DualSense controller and 3D audio. There's no better way to play Marvel's Spider-Man. The PS5 version has the added benefit of near-instant loading times. Players can jump straight into the sequel, Marvel's Spider-Man, Miles Morales, after completing the original. The spin-off to Marvel Spider-Man puts you in the shoes of Miles Morales roughly a year after he gained his spider-like abilities. It is wintertime, New York is covered in snow, and the city is readying to celebrate the Christmas holiday. Of course, the city that never sleeps is always under attack by some dastardly villain. Peter is out of the country with Mary Jane, so you're the only Spider-Man around to protect NYC. Warring factions are trying to take control, and it is up to you to stop them before their war destroys Miles' home and harms his family and friends. Insomniac Games delivers an ultra-fun sequel in Marvel Spider-Man 2, refining pretty much everything that came before while delivering another rollicking superhero story. This is about as solid a follow-up as you could hope for. While it'll be fairly familiar if you've played the other games, new features tip it over the edge. The web wings are a huge boon for traversal, combat has been smartly refined, and the side content is more meaningful. It's a real crowd pleaser, and is another shiny jewel in Sony's PS5 crown. The Hitman series needs no introduction. The franchise has really taken off, and its main character, genetically engineered Agent 47, has become a household name among gamers since the launch of Hitman, codenamed 47 in 2000. Now, Agent 47 returns in Hitman 3 with a new mission. The game was developed and published by IO Interactive in January 2021, and it is the 8th main installment of the Hitman series and the 3rd and final entry in the World of Assassination trilogy. The game is played from a third-person perspective, which gives you a broader view of Agent 47's moves as he interacts with the environment and brings enemies down while staying out of sight. In the single-player story, 47 works with allies to hunt down the leaders of Providence, a secret organization that was heavily involved in the creation and upbringing of 47 and his peers. If your search for the best campaign game on PS5 is leaning towards stealth games, then Hitman 3 is one of the top options out there. The Uncharted series has always been a single-player gaming franchise strongly associated with the PlayStation brand. The first game launched in 2007 for the PS3, and the latest mainline release was the 2016 title Uncharted 4: A Thief's End. Taking advantage of the extra horsepower and features of the PS5, Naughty Dog and Sony Interactive Entertainment remastered this game and its standalone expansion Uncharted: The Lost Legacy in 2022, bringing the game to a whole new audience of gamers. Considering just how great a release that Uncharted 4: A Thief's End was, this remastered edition is undoubtedly worthy of anyone's attention. It includes the same gameplay that earned universal praise in 2016, which hasn't aged poorly, with a significant visual upgrade and new performance settings. Although it may have been nice to have all of the games from the series remastered in a single collection, the low price of this package and the quality on offer still makes it one of the better single-player experiences on the PS5. Cyberpunk 2077 had a really rough launch, especially on the last generation of consoles. Why CDPR thought it would be a good idea to release the game on past systems is anyone's guess. Despite this rough launch and questionable decision to release the game on hardware that was nearly a decade old, the current version of the game on PlayStation 5 has never been better. With most of the bugs and glitches fixed, the RPG mechanics completely overhauled, and even an entire expansion, there's never been a better time to play Cyberpunk 2077. The game takes place in Night City, a dystopian metropolis ruled by cutthroat corporations. You play as V, a cybernetically enhanced mercenary trying to make a living. It's an RPG that allows you to customize your build and playstyle. It is no secret that Final Fantasy VII is one of the most popular games ever. And deservingly so. FF7 was the pinnacle of the Final Fantasy series and has stood the test of time. The FF7 Remake Intergrade edition simply made it that much better. This remake expands upon the beloved entry and is the first title in a lengthy saga that reimagines Final Fantasy VII. Intergrade covers up until the escape from Midgar portion of the game. It also provides a separate story where you play as Yuffie and are tasked with infiltrating the Shinra building. Ryuga Gotoku Studio, probably best known for the Yakuza series, began work on Lost Judgment not long after the release of its predecessor. The original game was a spin-off of the Yakuza franchise and followed private detective Takayuki Yagami as he investigated gruesome murders where the victims were left with mutilated corpses. In the sequel, the lawyer-turned-investigator is pursuing a suspect accused of multiple murders. Although the action will be familiar to anyone who has played Judgment, the more recent title features 2 new fighting styles to give Yagami more options when it comes to combat. The engaging gameplay is a mixture of stealth and platforming, with objectives such as tailing a suspect or chasing someone through the streets of several Japanese cities. Lost Judgment also showcases a mature and compelling plot that deals with some dark themes in a way that isn't too sensationalist but keeps players utterly gripped at all times. Lost Judgment is among the few awesome single-player games on the PS5 available across other consoles. It is possible to play the Sega game on the PS4, Xbox One, Xbox Series X, S, and PC, but none of that takes away from the fact that PS5 owners should try it out if they are fans of other action-adventure games. If you want a single-player experience that truly gives off the vibe of your character being alone, then you should have a look at Death Stranding. The game was originally released in late 2019, a year before the launch of the PS5. However, the director's cut served as the next-gen edition when it was released in September 2021. The update brought new features, better graphics, and better performance to bring the game up to speed with 9th-generation consoles, but the core of the story remained the same. In the campaign's 40-hour-long story, you play Sam Porter, a delivery guy on a bike. It's an overly simplistic description though, because what Sam does is much more dangerous than simply moving packages around. The game is set in the post-apocalyptic USA, where a cataclysmic event has stripped the world of its natural order. A host of beach things, called BTs in-game, appear on Earth, making it unsafe for people to go outside. You're in charge of making deliveries to keep things ticking, moving packages that no one else will. You won't get too many human encounters though, which is why I said that the game truly captures the feeling of being alone. The story progression holds up very well despite this though, and the payoff is worth it at the end. If that sounds like what you're looking for, then Death Stranding should get your seal of approval. I really love the Ratchet and Clank series, and Rift Apart is arguably the best entry the series has had so far. Taking advantage of the PS5's solid-state drive, players are able to quickly jump around from one dimension to the next without any loading screens, a really impressive feature both technically and in a gameplay sense. Ratchet and Clank, Rift Apart is an action platformer / third-person shooter with a Pixar-inspired art style and a really interesting sci-fi universe. You play as, well, Ratchet, as he battles his way through the multiverse in an attempt to rejoin with his buddy Clank and defeat a new version of his old foe, Dr. Nefarious. While he does this, he'll meet friends new and old. It's a really lighthearted, family-friendly game that makes a perfect holiday gift for the kids, or just for yourself. Devil May Cry 5 Special Edition is an enhanced version of the 2019 action-adventure game developed by Capcom. Originally released for PC, PS4, and Xbox One, the game is a continuation of the series set a few years after the events of Devil May Cry 4, where Dante and his allies once again fight to prevent the destruction of the world. This time around, they battle against the Demon King Yuri Zen, who is determined to wipe out humanity. When porting the game to PS5 and Xbox Series X, S, Capcom included the standard visual and performance upgrades, plus interesting new features. These included a new playable character, Virgil, and a new difficulty mode called Legendary Dark Knight to provide a more intense challenge to experienced players. There's also ray tracing support and a turbo mode that significantly increases the game speed to make the action more frantic. All that makes this the most complete and stylish hack-and-slash single-player game on the console. The differences between Resident Evil 2 on PS4 and PS5 are few and far between, but its everlasting quality remains. This is still a spectacular remake of the 1998 survival horror classic, modernizing Leon S. Kennedy and Claire Redfield's first adventure with a third-person camera and vastly updated visuals. The Raccoon Police Department has never looked more terrifying with a native 4K resolution and ray tracing on PS5, so leave enough room to peek over the covers and experience one of the best horror experiences around. If you like survival games with a bit of horror mixed in, Returnal is a great single-player choice. The story goes that Celine, the player character, has crash-landed on an alien planet. Then a Groundhog Day scenario takes place where she has to start over again each time she dies. Every time you go through Returnal, the planet and available equipment change. You have to adapt to those changes rather quickly, or you'll end up back at the beginning. However you decide to tackle the game, make sure you gather upgrades and ammo. The best way to put down the aliens is with bullets. My choice for the best single-player game for the PlayStation 5 is Red Dead Redemption 2. If you've read my work before, chances are you know how obsessed with this game I am, so it should be no surprise I put it in first on this list. RDR2 is an open-world action-adventure game made by the same developers who gave us Grand Theft Auto 5. It tells the tale of Arthur Morgan, the lead enforcer of a gang of outlaws trying to make a living in the Wild West. This game is amazing for a lot of reasons. Players are given access to a beautiful, dense open world full of random encounters to find, missions to complete, and NPCs to meet. You can live as an outlaw, robbing stagecoaches, homesteads, trains, and more. But the real star of the show is the amazing story. Arthur Morgan is without a doubt the best written protagonist I've ever played as in a video game. This game is a must-play, regardless if you're on the PlayStation 5 or any other platform. One of the most influential and most highly rated games in living memory is Resident Evil 4, and surprise surprise, the remake is just as essential. Capcom has brought Leon's disturbing European excursion into the modern era with updated controls, vastly improved graphics, and knife parries. The remake nails the tone of the beloved original while building on it with a creepier atmosphere and even new areas to explore and side missions to keep you busy. It's somehow improved on one of the best games ever. So, did you like the games I recommended? So leave your like, subscribe to the channel to follow me and activate the bell because I post a lot of videos on this channel and you can't miss it. I would like to remind you that in the description we have a list of different products that can make your gaming experience much better. If you want to buy, the link will be in the description. Anyway, thank you very much for following me this far and until next time, bye.